In the quiet town of Oguta, the government had recently introduced a welfare program for widows, monthly financial support, free food supplies, and housing stipends. What began as a noble cause to support grieving women quickly spiraled into something no one could have foreseen. Amid the crowded market chatter and clanging iron pots, four friends met under the old mango tree near the stream. They called themselves the Circle, each one beautiful, young, and deceptively innocent. There was Gozi, the ringleader, sharp-eyed, persuasive, and always the first to speak. Ruth, soft-spoken with a deadly calm. Sandra, the flashy one, loud and flirtatious. And Amarachi, the youngest, only 19, and desperate for a way out of poverty. "Have you heard?" Gozi began, peeling a mango slowly, eyes darting around to ensure no one was listening. "Mama Chica just got 500,000 naira from the widow allocation. 500,000, and she didn't even like her husband. 500? Sandra blinked. "And all I've been doing is wasting my waste on broke boys." Ruth chuckled. "So what are you saying? We should start crying on Instagram with black rappers and no husbands?" Gozi leaned forward, lowering her voice. "No, I'm saying we get married, and then become widows." The silence was heavy. Even the birds above the tree stopped chirping for a moment. "You mean?" Amarachi started but didn't finish. Her words froze on her lips. Gozi didn't smile. "Listen, we're young, beautiful. Men will marry us within a week, especially those ones that have land or savings. And after 2 months, we become widows." Sandra exhaled deeply. "That's crazy. That's murder." "No," Ruth said quietly, "that's survival." They stared at each other. The world around them seemed to grow still, like the stream held its breath, listening to a wicked plan being born under its watch. Within a month, the plan was already in motion. Gozi married a retired teacher named Mr. E's widowed himself, lonely and living on pension. He was kind, quiet, and trusted easily. She made sure to charm him, cook his favorite yam porridge, and rub his back every night. On the 4th Sunday of their 2nd month together, he drank his usual palm wine. Only this time, it was laced. By morning, Mr. E's was gone. Gozi wept loudly at his funeral, dressed in black, lace and shaking uncontrollably, so convincing that even the priest wiped a tear. A week later, she filed her widow status. The government approved her within days. Sandra followed. Her target was a commercial driver who had 2 buses and no children. She made him laugh, filled his evenings with pepper soup and promise. He lasted barely 6 weeks. Then came Ruth, quiet Ruth, who married an asthmatic man and accidentally misplaced his inhaler during a midnight attack. The last was Amarachi. She hesitated. Her husband, Shinadu, was young and gentle. He bought her bread every morning and massaged her feet after long days. He wasn't rich, but he was kind and he loved her. But kindness had no place in the circle. Gozi reminded her, "You joined us. You swore. You knew what this was." Sandra added, "Don't get soft now. We've come too far." So, one night, Amarachi placed the poison inside his tea. But when he coughed violently and begged for help, she screamed and neighbors came rushing. Shinadu survived, and Amarachi disappeared by morning. Now, the town is uneasy. The chief has ordered a quiet investigation after 3 husbands died mysteriously, and 1 survived a poisoning attempt. Amarachi's face was last seen on a camera at the local bus terminal. She was crying. But the other 3 women? They wear black lace every Sunday. They attend widow meetings. They receive monthly allocations. They sing louder than anyone during church hymns. But somewhere in Oguta, a rumor is growing of 3 widows and a missing girl. And just maybe, Shinadu is the key to uncovering it all. The news of Shinadu's survival spread like wildfire. At first, it was whispered in corners between hairdressers, braiding under umbrellas and pepper sellers at dawn. But it didn't take long before tongues began wagging publicly. The details were chilling. Poisoned tea, foaming mouth, a young wife screaming in panic, and then vanishing into the night. The police came quietly. No sirens, no noise, just a plain car that parked near Shinedu's family house. Inside, Shinedu sat with a bandage still on his arm from the drip. His face was pale, but his eyes held fire. She said she loved me, he muttered to Officer Hassan. She cried the night I proposed. Said I saved her life, Hassan scribbled in his pad. And on the night of the incident, what exactly did she say? Shinedu shook his head. She didn't say anything. She just stood there, watching me choke, frozen. Outside the house, a few villagers lingered, pretending to fetch water or buy airtime, but their ears were alert. They had heard of Amarachi's friends, how they all got married the same month, how their husbands had all died, one after the other. A strange pattern no one wanted to say out loud, yet everyone could feel. In the quiet widow's fellowship, Gozi sat like a queen in mourning, back straight, veil perfectly pinned, lips painted with subtle gloss. She was the first to arrive and the last to leave. They're watching us, Ruth whispered as they arranged chairs for the meeting. Let them watch, Gozi replied. Let them talk. None of them have proof. Sandra frowned. They don't need proof. People believe what they feel. That's worse than evidence. Gozi turned to her sharply. You're not losing your nerve, are you? Sandra looked away. I'm just saying, Amarachi's failure is drawing attention. Shinedu survived, Gozi. What if he remembers something? Gozi hissed under her breath. She should have finished the job. She got soft. That's her mistake, not ours. But as they spoke, someone else was listening quietly from the back of the church. Mama Obianuju, a 60-year-old widow who had lost her husband to cancer many years ago. She watched the three young women with sharp, discerning eyes. These girls don't mourn like widows, she murmured to herself. They mourn like actresses. That evening, Ruth couldn't sleep. She kept hearing footsteps outside her window, though no one was there. In her dreams, her husband gasped for air and asked, was it worth it? She woke in a cold sweat. She walked to the mirror, stared at her reflection, and whispered, it was survival. It was survival. But deep down, something was shifting. Shinedu, recovering slowly, began remembering things. The way Amarachi held the teacup that night, how her hand trembled, the way she kept glancing toward the door, and something else, a small black notebook she kept under the bed. He had never opened it. Now he wondered. He called his cousin, Emeka. Help me find her, Amarachi, she's hiding. But not well. Emeka, a street-savvy bike rider, nodded. I know someone who works at the park. If she boarded that night, we'll trace her. And so began a quiet hunt, not just to find Amarachi, but to uncover the darkness she ran from. Back in town, Sandra was being followed. She noticed at first at the market a tall man in a cap buying onions from every stall she visited. Then again on her way home, walking 10 paces behind her, she confronted him. Why are you following me? The man smirked. I'm not, but if I were, what would I find if I looked close? Sandra's heart pounded. She didn't wait to hear more. She turned and ran. And just like that, the circle began to crumble, not from outside attacks, but from the fear inside them. Cracks were forming, eyes were watching. The perfect plan was rotting from within. And Amarachi, wherever she was, carried the one story that could burn it all down. Amarachi had fled in the early morning haze, long before the rooster crowed. She wore a scarf over her head and borrowed a wrapper from her neighbor. With shaky hands, she had packed only 2 things, the black notebook and a photo of her mother. She boarded the bus heading out of Oguta without looking back. Now, 3 towns away, she lived in a cramped room behind a roadside restaurant, working as a dishwasher. Nobody there knew her name. She went by Chika, kept her head down, and avoided eye contact. But she knew it wouldn't last forever. Back in Oguta, Emeka arrived at Shinedu's house with a receipt in his hand. Park officer said a girl matching her description paid cash. Left no name, but she headed east, toward Achuka, Emeka said, handing Shinedu the faded bus stub. Shinedu clenched his jaw. Then that's where I'll go. You sure? What if she tries again? I'm not looking for revenge, he said, his voice tight. I just want to know why. Why she tried to kill me. Why she cried afterward. Why she ran instead of watching me die. Emeka didn't reply. He knew this wasn't just about answers. This was about betrayal, raw, personal, unforgettable. At the Widows' Fellowship, tension hung in the air like fog. The women were quieter now. The fake tears had dried up, replaced by paranoia. Gozi stood before them in her usual black dress, still composed, still in control, but her eyes had grown sharper, colder. We need to stay ahead, she said, pacing the floor slowly. If Amarachi talks, it's over. For all of us. What if she already has? Ruth asked, her voice barely above a whisper. She hasn't, Gozi snapped. We'd already be in cuffs. No arrests, no headlines. That means she's hiding. Sandra looked away. Her hands trembled. People are looking at us differently. Mama Obianuju said I walk like I'm carrying a secret. Gozi's jaw tightened. Then stop walking like that. There was silence. But what none of them knew, what even Amarachi didn't know, was that someone else had found her notebook. Mama Obianuju had followed Ruth one day, pretending to go her way. She had watched her from a distance, eyes sharp as razors. And when Ruth went to her late husband's house to collect some things, Mama Obianuju had crept in after she left. She had no intention of stealing. She only wanted to know the truth. That's when she found the duplicate key under a flower pot. And inside, behind a loose wooden panel in the wardrobe, a second black notebook. It was Gozi's. Detailed entries, names, dates, deaths, descriptions of the poison used. At the end of the last page, 4 names were written: Gozi, Ruth, Sandra, Amarachi, with one word underlined beneath them: widows. Mama Obianuju froze. She sat on the floor, clutching the notebook like it was on fire. They killed them, she whispered. Those girls, they killed them. Amarachi sat outside the restaurant that night, her hands wrapped around a cup of pap. She stared at the stars and thought of Shinadu, his soft eyes, his stupid laugh, how he used to hum old highlife songs while brushing his teeth. She had loved him, and that's what made her dangerous. Because now, she didn't just have regret, she had a reason to come back, and she wasn't going to be silent anymore. In Oguta, a knock echoed on Sandra's door around midnight. She opened it slowly. A piece of paper was on the floor. She picked it up, hands shaking. It was a photo of her and her late husband on their wedding day, burnt around the edges. On the back, in bold red ink, were the words, "I know." The dusty road to Achuca hummed quietly as Shinadu stepped off the bus, a bag slung over his shoulder. His heart was heavy, not with hatred but with questions. Too many questions. He hadn't told anyone he was coming, not even Emeka. He moved like a ghost through the crowded market, eyes searching, memory guiding him. He had replayed Amarachi's face 100 times in his dreams. The way she had wept, the way she had trembled, the way she didn't stop him from dying, but didn't stay to finish it either. And that meant something. He asked questions in quiet corners. Do you know a girl named Chika? 19, pretty, always looking down. Most people shook their heads, until one woman, an old bean cake seller, nodded slowly. She works behind that buka over there, she said, pointing with an oily finger. Doesn't talk much. Keeps to herself. Been here about a month. Shinadu turned slowly. The building looked tired. The wood creaked. The smoke from the kitchen swirled like secrets in the air. He walked around back, and there she was, Amarachi, bent over a basin of plates, her scarf pulled down, sleeves soaked. She was humming softly to herself an old lullaby her mother used to sing. She turned and froze, their eyes locked. The basin dropped from her hands. Kai, she gasped. Shinadu? Shinadu didn't speak. He just stared at her like he was trying to decide whether she was a ghost or a memory. She stumbled back. How did you find me? I remembered your eyes, he said simply. Even when they lied. Silence. She sat down slowly on an overturned crate. Her hands trembled. I thought you died. You wanted me to. No, she shouted, sudden and sharp. Her eyes glistened. I panicked. I didn't want to do it. I swear to you. He moved closer, still calm. But you did. I was afraid, she cried. Gozi said we'd all go to jail if anyone backed out. She threatened me. She said I already swore that if I didn't finish it, they'd finish me. Shinadu clenched his jaw. So instead you tried to kill the only man who ever loved you. Tears streamed down her face. I couldn't go through with it, she whispered. I poisoned the tea, but when I saw you drinking it, I lost it. That scream? That was me dying inside. I couldn't watch you go, so I ran. She reached into her waistband and pulled out a small, weathered notebook. Everything is in here. The plans, the deaths, the meetings, Gozi. She wrote it all. He took it from her, flipping through the pages slowly. She was telling the truth. Shinadu exhaled, lowering the notebook. Why are you giving this to me? Amarachi looked at him with raw red eyes. Because I want to make it right. Because I want to live, not just exist. And because I know I'll never find peace if I keep running. Shinadu sat beside her quietly. You can't go back alone, he said after a long pause. They'll know you're the weak link. I'm not afraid anymore, she said. He looked at her, really looked. She was thinner, darker under the eyes, but there was something new in her, resolve. He nodded. Then we'll go back together. That night, they didn't sleep. They stayed in the same room, but apart. Amarachi stared out the window, heart thudding like drums in a funeral march. Shinadu stayed up reading the notebook page by page, his fingers trembling as the truth unfolded before him. The circle, the husbands, the poisons, and how close he came to joining the graveyard of broken men. Tomorrow, they would return to Oguda, but they weren't coming back as victims. They were bringing the storm. The sun was low when the bus rolled into Oguda. Amarachi sat by the window, scarf pulled over her head, her hands gripping the black notebook so tightly that her knuckles ached. Beside her, Shinadu looked out at the familiar streets, every bend and market stall carrying the weight of memory. Neither spoke. The air between them was thick with unspoken fears. When they stepped off the bus, no one recognized Amarachi immediately, but whispers spread fast. By the time they reached Shinadu's compound, 3 women had already hurried off toward the widow's fellowship to deliver the news. She's back. At the widow's meeting that evening, the air was tense. Gozi sat at the center, back straight, arms folded. Ruth and Sandra flanked her, both visibly uneasy. She wouldn't come back unless she had something, Sandra muttered. Or someone, Ruth added. Gozi's lips curved into a cold smile. Then we'll find out what and make sure she doesn't live long enough to use it. Meanwhile, in another part of town, Mama Obianuju sat on her veranda with the other black notebook on her lap. She hadn't told a soul about what she found, not even the chief. But now, with Amarachi's return, she knew time was running out. She could already smell blood in the air. That night, Amarachi and Shinadu met with Mama Obianuju in secret. The old widow's sharp eyes scanned Amarachi from head to toe. You've lost weight, Mama Obianuju said, her tone flat. I wasn't eating much, Amarachi replied. Shinadu placed the notebook on the table between them. This is proof. Every husband, every plan, every woman involved. Mama Obianuju didn't touch it. Instead, she leaned back in her chair. You think proof is enough in this town? Gozi has charm, power, and fear on her side. If you go at her directly, she'll bury you before the sun rises. Amarachi's voice trembled but stayed firm. Then we hit her where charm can save her, where fear won't protect her. Mama Obianuju narrowed her eyes. And where is that? In front of the elders, Amarachi said. And the police. The old widow's lips curled into something that wasn't quite a smile. But news travels fast in small towns. By morning, Sandra spotted Shinadu in the market, casually buying bread. She didn't confront him, she ran straight to Gozi. Gozi's face darkened. If he's back with her, they're planning something. What do we do? Ruth asked nervously. Gozi's eyes went cold as steel. We make sure Amarachi doesn't live to see the elders. That evening, a knock came at Amarachi's door. She froze. Shinadu was out fetching water, so she approached slowly. When she opened it, Ruth was standing there alone looking pale. I need to talk to you, Ruth whispered. They're planning to kill you tomorrow night. Amarachi's breath caught. Ruth stepped closer, lowering her voice. I can't keep doing this, Amarachi. The guilt is eating me alive. But if I help you, I'm as good as dead too. From outside, footsteps approached. 3, maybe 4. Ruth's eyes widened. They're here. The footsteps outside grew heavier, more deliberate. Ruth's breathing quickened. They'll kill both of us if they find me here, she whispered. Amarachi's eyes darted to the back door. Go, now. But before Ruth could move, a deep male voice called from outside. Open up, Amarachi. We just want to talk. It wasn't a voice she recognized, which meant Gozi had hired someone. Ruth's eyes filled with panic. They brought men. The knock turned into pounding. Shinadu still hadn't returned. Amarachi grabbed the small black notebook and stuffed it inside the lining of her wrapper. Then she moved quickly toward the back. Through the kitchen, Ruth hissed. There's a narrow path to the stream. They slipped out the back door just as the front one burst open with a loud crack of splintering wood. Shouts filled the small house. She's gone. Check outside. The path to the stream was dark, tangled with roots. Amarachi ran barefoot, her wrapper threatening to come undone, her lungs burning with every step. Behind her, she could hear the men crashing through the bushes. Don't let her reach the road, one of them shouted. Ruth stumbled, but Amarachi pulled her up, adrenaline giving her strength she didn't know she had. They reached the stream, but it wasn't the safe passage they'd hoped for. The rains had swollen it, turning it into a rushing torrent. We can't cross, Ruth gasped. Then we hide. Amarachi scanned the shadows. A fallen tree lay across the bank, hollow in the middle. She pushed Ruth inside first, then crawled in after her, mud clinging to their skin. The men arrived seconds later. She's here somewhere, one muttered. Spread out. Through the gaps in the log, Amarachi could see their torchlights slicing through the dark. One beam passed so close to her face she had to hold her breath. Minutes dragged on like hours. Finally, a shout came from the distance. Nothing here. Check the market road. The men's footsteps faded, but Amarachi didn't move. She waited until even the crickets had gone back to singing. When they finally emerged, muddy and shaking, Shinadu was waiting at the edge of the trees, holding a small lantern. His face was pale with worry. I saw them going toward your room, he said. I knew they wouldn't come to talk. We need to leave town, Ruth said urgently. Tonight? Before they realize you're still alive. Shinadu shook his head. If we run, Gozi wins. We take the notebooks to the elders at first light, but we need witnesses. People they can't silence. Amarachi met his gaze. Her voice was firm. Then tomorrow, we stop hiding. But as they walked back through the darkness, none of them noticed the shadow, watching from the trees, torchlight glinting off her eyes. Gozi had seen everything, and now, she knew exactly who had betrayed the circle. By dawn, Oguta was already buzzing. The word had spread. Amarachi and Shinadu are going to the elders. People abandoned their morning chores to loiter near the town square. The air smelled of roasting maize and tension. Inside the chief's hall, the long wooden table was polished, the chairs filled with the town's most respected elders. Mama Obianuju sat near the front, her eyes sharp, her black notebook clutched like a weapon. Shinadu entered first, guiding Amarachi by the arm. Ruth followed close behind, her head low, scarf pulled tight. Gozi was already there. Sandra sat beside her, looking nervous. Gozi's smile was sweet, but her eyes were knives. So, the prodigal widow returns, she murmured as Amarachi passed. The chief banged his staff on the floor. Let this meeting begin. You have brought accusations against your fellow women. Speak. Shinadu stood. This is not gossip. This is murder. Gasps echoed through the room. He placed Amarachi's notebook on the table. Every plan, every victim, every date is here. And Mama Obianuju has another belonging to Gozi herself. Mama Obianuju stepped forward, placing her notebook beside his. The elders leaned in, their faces tightening as they skimmed the pages. This is a lie, Gozi said coolly, standing with deliberate grace. Do you know how easy it is to write names in a book? To frame someone you envy? Ruth's voice shook as she stood. It's not a lie. We all agree to marry men and kill them for the widow allocation. The murmurs grew louder, scandal thick in the air. Gozie's head turned slowly toward Ruth, so the snake finally shows its fangs. The chief raised a hand. Gozie, if you are innocent, you will have your chance to prove it. Gozie's calm cracked for the first time. Prove it? She laughed bitterly. You think these elders will protect me? No, you've already chosen your side. Her hand darted into her wrapper. For a heartbeat, no one breathed until a flash of metal caught the morning light. A blade. The hall erupted into chaos. Elders leapt back from the table. Shinadu pushed Amarachi behind him. Gozie lunged, but not at Amarachi. She went straight for Ruth. The knife slashed through the air, grazing Ruth's shoulder before Shinadu tackled Gozie to the ground. The blade clattered away. Outside, the crowd had heard the screams. Villagers surged into the hall, blocking every exit. Pinned under Shinadu, Gozie's mask finally shattered. She spat at Amarachi's feet. You think this ends with me? The circle is bigger than you know. Amarachi's voice was steady, but her hands trembled. Then we'll burn the whole circle down. By the time the police arrived, Gozie was bound and bleeding from a split lip. The elders handed over both notebooks as evidence, but even as she was dragged away, Gozie smiled through her pain. A slow, dangerous smile. Because somewhere in that crowd, Sandra was slipping quietly out the back door, her eyes fixed on Amarachi. And Sandra wasn't running. She was planning. The town woke to a new wave of tension. While the dust of Ruth's and Gozie's scandal had not yet settled, a colder, more calculated shadow began to loom over Amarachi's life. Sandra had been quietly watching while evading the police, her jealousy of Amarachi's closeness to Shinadu growing into something dangerous. She moved in silence, spreading subtle rumors and manipulating anyone who would listen. People began to turn suspicious eyes toward Amarachi again, but this time, it wasn't Ruth pulling the strings. The peace Amarachi had begun to taste was shattered one evening when word spread like wildfire. Ruth had been detained finally and proven guilty. Witnesses had finally come forward linking her to the murder of her husband, and the evidence was damning. The shock was doubled when it was revealed that Gozie was also taken in that same night, charged with murder too. The whispers of their shared secrets became the talk of every street corner. Sandra, emboldened by Ruth's downfall, thought it was her opportunity to destroy Amarachi completely. She partnered with those who still resented Amarachi, and soon, her own misdeeds caught up to her. The police came not just for Sandra, but also for Amarachi, both accused for the same murder crimes. But fate had a different plan. Shinadu, unwavering in his love for Amarachi, came forward with evidence and testimony. Standing in the crowded police station, his voice was steady and clear. I will not press charges against Amarachi. She didn't mean to poison me, she was just pressured by her peers. I love her, and I will stand by her no matter what. The weight of his words silenced the room. The officers turned their focus fully on Sandra, whose schemes were now laid bare for all to see. Sandra was led away in handcuffs, her once smug expression replaced with cold defeat. Amarachi was freed. The relief was overwhelming. Tears flowed, not just from her but from those who truly cared for her. Shinadu took her hand, and together they walked out into the evening light, the first breath of freedom filling their lungs. In the days that followed, Ruth and Gozie's trial began, their names now etched into the town's history for all the wrong reasons. Sandra, too, faced the weight of justice. Shinadu and Amarachi moved on with their lives, choosing love over the scars of the past. Weeks turned into months, and the gossip that once threatened to destroy Amarachi's life began to fade into silence. The same mouths that once whispered against her now spoke of her resilience and quiet grace. And so, in a small town where secrets often screamed louder than truth, Amarachi and Shinadu's love stood as the final answer, proof that even in the face of betrayal, love could still win. If you enjoyed watching this video, please like, share, and subscribe for more.